My name is Maggie. Maggie Heeren. I'm part of Fake Baseball. We're a five-piece based out of Kalamazoo. Two of our members live in Chicago now, but we all used to live here. The other members of the band include Adam Danis, who is the other major writing partner for the group, and Grayson Nye and Ethan Bausma. They're our Chicago boys, and Matthew Milo, who plays bass. He's in town.
Cool. And what do you do in the band?
I play guitar and sing, and I am our band's primary engineer and producer.
And you are sound engineer at La Luna, right?
I am. Yep. I that's sort of the main gig. I work as a tracking and mixing engineer at La Luna. I also do some live sound stuff around the state sometimes, if the price is right. Still.
And when was Fake Baseball created?
We started back in 2020-ish. I was pursuing a bachelor's through the MAT department at Western, which stands for Multimedia Arts and Technology. And in that program, you have what's called a capstone project at the end. You know, your senior year sort of culminates in a year-long project, and Fake Baseball sort of started out of that capstone project. It was during the beginning of the pandemic and lockdown and that whole era, so we kind of made an album twice and worked up a live band sort of after we had our first full-length album made, and so it was definitely an odd path towards having a live group, but it's been working out.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
Fun fruition story.
Yeah, not the most normal origin story, I guess.
Let's see. How do you feel like your sound, upon that like initial start, has evolved over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say a big part of that is solidifying the live band. For the first full-length album called In With the Id Crowd, me, Adam Danis, Jared Sellner, who's no longer a primary member of the band, who played saxophone and a bunch of stuff on the first album, and Grayson Nye, our keyboard player, wrote and recorded all of the first album, and then we hired Ethan and Milo to make the live band afterwards. So we worked up the whole album as a live band, and then we started, writing new material as the band. There was never another, this is just purely a studio project thing in the air after that first album. So what we've sort of locked into recently is that Adam and I will kind of work on new stuff up to about 80-ish%, and then we'll pitch it to the band, and everybody has an opportunity to get their fingerprints on it, feel ownership, say no to things before they become precious to us or something like that, and it's been working out pretty well as a method.
Cool. So have you been, from the sounds of it, you've been recording Fake Baseball's material from the get-go?
Yes. After the first full length, we started to do basic tracking as a live band with an engineer named Ben Zito up in Grand Rapids at Centennial Sound. And we love working with Ben. He recorded basic tracking for our most recent EP that came out in October called The Goods. And he also did basic tracking for the single that is upcoming and going to be released on June 12th this year, Why We're Here.
Yeah, we can get right into that if you'd like to.
Oh yeah, no, I was just, plopping it in as many times as I can.
So new single is getting released on June 12th. What is it called?
It's called Sign 'Em. It's a boogie, woogie, oogie track about sort of the fear of death industrial complex, I would say. But it's a cooker, it's a banger, it's a fast tune, it's super fun, it hangs out on just sort of one chord for most of the tune. Actually, when we had a demo going for this, like long before it was a full song yet, we just had the demo name as one chord for a really long time.
Wow.
But yeah, it's called Sign 'Em, and we're super excited to release it. We think that it's going to be everybody's summer single. That's the hope.
It's interesting to hear that it's based off of one chord, because when I listen to it, it sounds like it has a lot of movement.
Oh yeah, no, how many ways can you make one chord interesting, I guess, was in the mind of Adam Tanis. This was a prompt. It was a while back that we started writing this song, but it was originally a prompt that I gave Adam, and I had said, try to write a song with using one chord, because he's a very chordy guy. And he's like, I'll take your prompt, but I'll do this. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily, it doesn't drone and it's not monotonous, but it does definitely kind of play a lot of different iterations and ways to listen to a G.
Is that generally a way that you would generate ideas, is someone picking a prompt and the other band members running?
Certainly not as like a commonplace. It doesn't happen for the majority of tunes, but for some stuff we'll do things like that, or like a small little prompt or something. Like it doesn't have to be for the whole song or something like that.
So where did this single kind of like start? I mean, with the prompt, but where was like the kind of skeleton of it?
Yeah, we had already recorded the goods at that time, and we're sitting on a bunch of tunes, and recently we've kind of been rearranging our release schedule to be more focused on smaller releases, little EPs or singles here and there, and just try to gain momentum instead of, it just takes a very long time with no releases to put out full lengths, even though we all love records. So we've been kind of moving in that direction ever since we started tracking our EP that came out in October. So this was on the table for one of the next things that could come out, along with a handful of other tunes. And the next time we went in to do some tracking again at Centennial Sounds with Ben Zito in Grand Rapids. This was on the table along with a song called Grade A, Great Apes, which is also a brand new Fake Baseball tune. We've got it up on its feet. We're going to be playing it at our release show, but the recording is not completed for it. But we started that recording at the same session as Sign 'Em. And Sign 'Em just kind of is relatively straightforward as far as the context of all Fake Baseball songs go. So it didn't take super long. We had, some creative ideas we needed to, discuss and think about and whatever, but largely it was really easy to get that tune up on its feet in one round of basic tracking with the full band, because it's kind of a full band tune. It's kind of a live band song. Obviously, can't help myself. There's definitely some production stuff that we threw at the wall at it afterwards. But yeah, it went, to answer, I guess, your original question, it went from skeleton to full song relatively quickly, because it's not the most complex as far as section changes or any large form change decisions or anything like that.
You mentioned production elements. I'm kind of curious what those are.
Yeah, Fake Baseball kind of always likes to push the boundaries of something, and that's been kind of at the core of a sound since its inception in the world, because it was largely, started as a recording project. So it started purely inside the studio. So it's always been at the beginning of thoughts when songwriting. And there are some tunes, even stuff that we're currently writing that we go like, this ends up in the ones and zeros. This isn't something that the full band is going to play, but that doesn't mean we're not going to invest time in writing it or filling it out. But for Signum, I guess some really fun things that happen on it. There's a giggle tracks section. There's sort of a pre-solo section, and features this really hot riff that the full band sort of does. And then, there's just sort of a carefully curated progression of giggle tracks that sort of lead you into the solo section. And it makes me smile. I don't know if other people giggle when they listen to giggles, but that was the hope there.
How is that recorded exactly?
We did some in the studio during basic tracking just to have some placeholder stuff, but it wasn't, we moved some stuff around and we ended up recording extra giggles. But we did some stuff in the studio when everybody was there into a large group into the overheads from the kit and had people kind of move around and take multiple takes. So it has all the different phase relationships of time of arrival differences to the microphones when you move around. And it sounds like there's a lot more people there than just, the same people kind of moving to different places. Yeah. And then, we needed to fill it out with some other voices eventually. So I think we went to Harvey's on what none of us knew at the time was St. Patrick's Day, which turned out quite in our favor because there were riotous gigglers and partiers abound to record. So Josh King, Lindsay King, Josh Miller, Peter Malakar, John Steiger, and Adam and I met up and tried to just kind of let the phone go, did some voice memos of people giggling about whatever the conversation made them giggle about, and then put it in there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was very fun.
Is that something that you've done in the past, of like getting voice memos of your like natural external environment and incorporating that in a fake baseball song? Yeah,
we've done that a little bit. There's some of that going on in the first track of the first full-length album. It's a tune called Birthday Party. It's an instrumental song, apart from, fun little capture of voice memos. And then we also have a teeny tiny little song at the end of the EP that we came out with in October called Less Good. And it mostly just sort of plays a motif from the title track, The Goods, in a bizarre, detuned, phasey piano, little tiny moment to culminate the record, and has a little bit of Adam and I talking about what the songs mean and that kind of thing. But, relatively hard to pull out meaning.
I'm curious about, what your favorite part to record of this track has been.
The giggles and party sounds definitely stood out because it was just a large hang, and you don't have to think of most of the technical things about recording because you're just like, mono, voice memo. But other than that, it was, the basic tracking was an absolute blast. Ben Zito has an awesome space in Grand Rapids, and when we do full band tracking, my body is in an ISO booth, but because of different areas that we have to put everybody's amps and bodies and whatever, they end up having my amp usually in the bathroom, which is very funny because then anytime anybody goes to the bathroom, there's riotous giggles about arm the tracks. Gotta get the piss tracks in there. Which only happens once or twice or whatever. But we didn't put any of that in the song. That's just a fun facet of recording at Zito's when we have to do the full band.
Is it just because of a space?
It's a space thing. Yeah. There's a ton of space, but if you're doing, we've done 6-person full band tracking there before, and so just in order for everything to be isolated, the bathroom gets used as a amp ISO area.
Well, I guess if the amp's in there, it's probably not picking up too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's close, Mike. It's gonna, you know.
Okay, so you were talking a little bit about what it was about, and you said something about industrial, something about death.
Yeah, what I had said was the fear of death industrial complex, but I guess what I mean by that is sort of the big money church, the big business around, you know, certain industries or institutions taking advantage of religious people and what they believe in order to, you know, exploit them for money and things. We don't have to get super into it, because we have gone to great lengths to not necessarily hit you over the head with overly political meaning in a pop song that's supposed to be fun and a summertime hit, or whatever. But yeah, it's largely just sort of coming after the institution of the church. The church that makes money off of the people.
Yeah. And feel free to like wave off if you're like, that's all I want to say about it. But I'm kind of curious of your connection to that and how you choose to like write about what you do in your material.
Yeah, in general, Adam and I often think about what we haven't heard, and largely, you know, our stuff is going to be hugely influenced by our value systems and our, you know, ideologies and whatever. So, but also that's can be cooked in a large way or not. But we usually start by thinking about, you know, what haven't we heard a take on, or what haven't we, you know, we've heard this version of it, but not this other version of something. So, and when we're thinking conceptually about stuff, we'll usually talk about it completely void of thinking about it being inside of the tune first, you know. We're not thinking about the melody and the chorus or whatever. We're like, okay, so here's just a discussion in general about ageism in politics, or about whatever, we're, you know, and try to think of things that haven't been written about. We have one of our new tunes that is not recorded yet, but will be in one of these upcoming smaller releases in the future, is called Can't Be Bothered. And it's largely about a couple, it's a partnership, and one of the partners is basically too depressed to have sex, and so they're having a conversation with their partner being like, why don't you go masturbate, because I feel like that's where we're at. I'm not entering the sexual space or whatever. And so, you know, but it's a pop song. It's a banger, 4 on the floor in a bunch of places, pop song, you know. Just trying to think of these avenues of conversation, these sort of pockets of ideologies that in general don't get the airspace.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess something that might be good to talk about too is it's like taking a kind of complex topic, right, and then turning it into a song kind of like forces you to like infuse it with some fun, right?
Right.
And I'm kind of curious on like how you accomplish that specifically inside of,
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I have a great answer, but that's a great question. I will say the tune, the arrangement of the tune is super fun. It's very up. It's fast paced. It's lots of full band section stuff, and very driving, very motion forward kind of feel. And so musically it kind of creates that environment for which something can feel that way regardless of what the lyrics mean or whatever the singer's saying, you know. And on sort of a slightly deeper level, you know, Adam and I can write songs about whatever, but we're also kind of a small band writing songs about whatever. So at some point, even if you take on the biggest monsters of thought, the biggest concepts you can say something poignant about, how much that reaches, how much that changes a mind, how much somebody thinks about something new, like you don't really know any of that. You just kind of create the art and then it goes, and whatever impact it has, it has. So there's an element of like, you know, you laugh it off or something. And I do think the giggle track is just sort of this, what are you supposed to do, you know? Laugh, I guess. There's also a small element of a lot of the track contemplates the industry of the big money church saying, you know, don't you fear death, you know, you should do all of these things, you should donate money, whatever, because then you can get into heaven, and you should want to get into heaven because you should fear hell, right? And I think when we were making the album art for this one, there's a bunch of cute little dancing demons on the bottom having like a little party. And when I was making it, I just kind of kept thinking, what if hell was really fun? Like, it's kind of where all the fun people go, right? I don't know. That's all aside. I don't know if I answered your question very well at all. But I think that there's ways to do both things, you know, and music is, creativity in general is a lot of just sort of decisions. You can make decisions to have meaning backed up by every single element else that's going on in a song, and then you can also choose to sort of subvert that decision and say meaning is obscured in feeling, which is kind of opposite than it in this other way, or whatever. It causes layers of thinking, and you have to return to something in order to, you know, kind of get to the kernel of truth inside of it or something.
Yeah. I like the territory we got into there. That was cool. Let's see. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on specifically how this track is different from what you've released so far.
I think it shares a lot of DNA. I think that since forming the live band, we have kind of landed on a sound that feels very characteristic to what, you know, what we are and what we value in music, our sensibilities of, you know, each kind of individual player, what jives with us as a collective. And this tune definitely stands out from a lot of the breadth of the other work that we've done because it is more straightforward. It is largely one chord. It's not only one chord, I will say that, but there's more than one chord in the song. But, you know, in concept, and in a huge ratio of the song, it is kind of sitting on this one tonality, and it's got verses, it's got choruses, you know, it's got a solo section, it has an outro, it's a very much like, here's a standard form of a tune that you've kind of heard before. Mm-hmm. And that is something that, we largely have not done super often. We are challenging, but we try not to be challenging to the point that we're not accessible. Mm-hmm. But this one in particular, I think, will maybe welcome some listeners who have not been included with a nice big hug yet and say, don't be scared. You like us, actually. So I'm hoping that this one, it just sort of functions to grab the ears of a couple of people who maybe have not been able to get all the way turned on by the fake baseball sound yet.
Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe repeating when it's dropping, where it will be accessible.
Yeah.
And also like that album release show you were talking about too.
Yeah, so Sign is going to be available to the world, the internet. I guess the internet isn't all of the world, but to the internet on June 12th on all the streaming platforms. It is only a digital release, so we're not making any physicals. But we are having a release show at Bell's on June 15th. And we're playing with Earth Radio. We love Earth Radio. And After Hours, also love After Hours. And it's an 18 and up event at Bell's. It's $12 tickets in advance, but $15 the day of at the door. And we're gonna play the new single, Sign 'Em, and we're also gonna play a couple brand new fake baseball songs that have never yet been played, and it's going to be a super fun time.